What's good, everyone? Welcome back to My First Kicks. This is episode 149, and this week we welcome Kari, aka SneakerPhetish, to the podcast. Now, if you're looking for a specific episode where you think I'm gonna come at him, this is not it. Just giving a full disclaimer, the premise behind this podcast is to learn why people love and admire sneakers, and if you look at Kari's Twitter, you know he loves sneakers. He loves sneakers with a passion. So we talk about the origin of that and just his life. And, we touch into some stuff that I don't think he's ever said ever in a public forum such as this podcast. So I'm very excited to jump into the episode and for you to get to know Kari on a different level. But let's jump into my crazy Complex Con weekend. It was wild. I got to interview tons of people I never thought I was going to be able to interview, but that media pass got me in places and in conversations that I was not able to last year. So I'm very grateful for Complex for hooking your boy up, and I hope to be there next year as well. You will see clips of all these conversations I got to interview. I'm not gonna. I mean, I do want to tease it, but I'm not going to tease it until we get closer to maybe when I start posting them. But there's definitely a big name that I got, and it's a hilarious conversation. And I hope everybody gets to check it out. And in order to do that, you have to follow me on my socials. But I'll plug that after I plug Kari. But wanted to say thank you to everyone because without y'all, I wouldn't have been able to be in the room or have the opportunity to talk to these people and to be able to get a media pass to peruse the floor and interview people on camera. So shout out to y'all because without y'all, there is none of this. And it was just a surreal moment. I am debating on whether to do kind of an episode, just like a bonus episode, and drop that with all the interviews that me and Foggy were able to record, or just do kind of like a vlog type drop on the YouTube. I'm debating between the two, but I know I will be posting each interview probably separately because if you've been listening to this podcast, I ask introspective type questions. So it's not about, oh, what's the worst sneaker of the year or what is the sneaker of the year. It's a lot. I interview people that I have specific interest in. So it makes it easier for me to hit them with a question that a lot of interviewers are not just going to ask them. So I'm hoping that it piques your attention or grabs your attention, and I'm very grateful again for the opportunity. So on to where you can find Kari. You can find him on everything as SneakerPhetish. That's PHETISH, and you know how to spell sneaker. And also, I do at the end of the podcast there is a plea to subscribe to his old hip hop YouTube page. So please make sure you make it all the way to the end of the podcast. I'm not plugging it here. I want you to listen to the end, and hopefully, no matter in any time frame, when you're listening to this now, when you're listening to this in 2056, please, that YouTube page will be up. So make sure you make it to the end of the podcast. Shout out to Kari for giving me his time. Shout out to everybody who gives me their time, whether it be in interview form or just listening. Shout out to all of y'all. Just want to make sure, I am very appreciative, especially because this is coming out the day after Thanksgiving. I mean, Black Friday. I don't know why. I mean, hopefully you're listening to this while you're waiting for a TV or some sneakers or something. Shout out to y'all. Anyway, on to where you can find me. I am Who Is Haas on all social media. Follow the podcast at My First Kicks Pod. Follow the podcast and subscribe and like on YouTube at My First Kicks. That's youtube.com/My First Kicks. We're only at 151 subscribers at the moment, trying to get that up to 1,000, trying to get more views. It's a big thing on my goal board, as I talked about with Josh Pease. I'm going to get a goal board. I'm going to put, my goals for the year, especially for 2024. And one of them is going to be 1,000 subscribers, consistently posting. And also TikTok, My First Kicks on TikTok. I'm going to clip up the live show and put that on there. You're gonna get every single clip that I get made is gonna get put up on there for the live show because I want more people to see that. Got to see like that opportunity was absolutely nuts, and shout out to Chris Chaney for that. But I really want more people to watch the live show and see what it's like because it's a taste of what ComplexCon will be like. And once those clips are edited, ComplexCon clips will be dumping. I'll be dumping them on every single social as much as possible. So My First Kicks Pod, everywhere you can get your podcast on socials, and also My First Kicks, just look it up. And if you have a My First Kick story, I know I haven't been plugging this a lot on here because I haven't been getting any, but if you have a My First Kick story, hit me up, myfirstkickspod@gmail.com. Would love to hear your stories. Just answer the question. I'll read it to the guest and we can talk about it. Would love to add that tidbit on each episode, at least one episode. So please write in. Anyway, on to this week's guest, Sneaker Fetish. Hey Kari, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, I appreciate you for having me.
Finally, man. This is a long time coming.
I'm honored, man. I appreciate it for real.
Nah, so like when I first started doing this podcast and stuff like that. I mean, as a content creator, the struggles of
man
of like you find that, and we talked about it on Twitter, like the finding what does it mean to you and why should you keep going. Right. It happened to me real early on. I was having so much hard time just like trying to book guests. And when you realize that, I took that step back of like, I think my biggest thing was like, I'm looking for the right cosign. Once I get the cosign, it's going to be easy. Right.
Right.
And so I realized over some time that I was just like, I should do this for me. And as I said that, it was like everybody wanted to jump on immediately after that. Yeah. So
yes, sir. That's how it goes. You can't wait for nobody out here. I learned the same thing in my world. You can't wait, man. You just got to go. And then people will see your dope, right? And then they just naturally want to be a part of your dope. So that's what you're doing. That's why I'm here, because you killing it, my brother. Yo, can I get in, please? Like, so.
Nah, man. Now you dragging it.
Hey, I'm just saying. Yo, you got time for me? Look, yo, because you said, yo, October's booked, my brother. I can't do it. What, y'all? Hey, I'm on your time. Look, so.
I mean, look, it's wild. It's been wild now. I mean, had a live show and. I mean, I tried to promote that. That was a whole other beast. And you did Black Footwear Forum, right?
No, I didn't do the forum this year because I was getting ready for Culture by Design in Milwaukee.
But you were on stage for that, so
yeah.
That, I mean, hopefully, I'm trying to get there. That sounds crazy intimidating, but I'm trying to get there.
That's light. We got you. Come through. Look, you should be there.
All right, yeah. Count me in for next year. But but for people who are familiar with you, how about you introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. So my name actually will clear a couple things up starting off the bat. So my actual name is David Daniels. My middle name is Bakari, and so that's why I go by Kari. It's a shortened version of my middle name. But yeah, man. So people call me Kari. I am originally from New Jersey. Originally from Livingston, actually, is where I was born. Lived in Newark until I was about 4 or 5. And then I went to St. Louis until I was in my teens in high school. And then I came down to Alabama, man, where I've pretty much been ever since, give or take a couple years that I left for work, man. So been in Alabama now about 20 years, coming up on 20 years. So that's where I currently am. I'm in Huntsville, Space and Rocket Center home. But yeah, man, I'm just, I'm a sneakerhead. I'm a father. I have a son. He's 16 right now. Wow. So getting big on me, junior in high school. So a lot of people, I drink my water, so I don't really look like I got a 16-year-old, but yeah, so there you go. You know what I'm saying?
This might be the most what is the word I'm looking for? The most because we're both old, is what I'm trying to say. But like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but we look like we're like 20 each. Like,
Right. We do. Yeah, for real. So, we don't look like what we've been through. But yeah, man, no, I just I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, man,
hmm
Spring '07, graduated college in 2011, man, went to UAH. And just yeah, man, when I'm not talking kicks, I'm talking 90s nostalgia, man,
hmm
or video games. That's my thing, man. So but sneakers is the passion. So I'm a simple guy. I'm a simple guy.
I mean, I get that. That's that. I hear you on all that stuff because that's me too to the core. So I mean, growing
Yes,
up,
sir.
I was at when I was because I was just at the Reddit offices for my job,
Nice.
and so
Nice.
I'm there. We're talking, and we were talking about like 90s Knicks, 90s Nick like
Nice.
Nickelodeon,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, and so we were talking about like, oh, Are You Afraid of the Dark, and
Yes,
Legends of the Hidden
sir.
Temple, like that. That
Yes,
was my
sir.
era, man. Like just.
Let me tell you, I always want to be an orange iguana, man. I always want to be, and I never got to be an orange iguana. I always wanted to go to Nick. Always want to go to the studios,
hmm
man. But we grew up poor, so that wasn't happening. But man, I always wanted to go. Yeah, you look. We could. That's a whole other
that's
podcast.
the real
We could
podcast right there.
we could get on '90s Nickelodeon that like for an hour. I ain't even going.
I
Yeah,
mean, it was wild when I worked there. So I'm
you work there?
yeah. When I worked at Viacom, I worked a little bit with Nickelodeon, but like I worked.
What?
I worked when I worked at Comedy Central. That's like my first job there in
Nice.
Viacom. We could talk all about that, but
That's
the
crazy.
I worked there, and then in that building, Nickelodeon was like half of the building. So you'd go in there, and I
Yeah.
was sitting on the floor where Nickelodeon
Mm-hmm.
was, and
Mm-hmm.
you'd go in. All the pipes were all orange, and they had like mad TMNT stuff. I was stealing, oh,
Yeah.
maybe everything. There was this one this one art director who had his own little siloed office inside
Yeah.
the spot where it's like it's all cubicles, right? And then one
Got you.
guy had his own thing because he had to be able to draw out the cells for the
Oh,
animation shows. And so
okay.
he was in there, and as he's in there, like you can see all the like cartoons that he's worked on, and he has like the pops and stuff. It was like, and because
Man.
the office was just glass. It was just a square glass, and
Oh, wow.
and you could like control the lights and stuff. It was wild. It was like working
That's
there was wild, bro.
crazy.
I mean, I have
That's
stories from
wow.
working in that building.
I was gonna say, I'm listening like, that's crazy. I want to know what that was like. That's crazy.
I mean,
Wow.
one time I took the elevator with Pete Davidson when I was working there, and
What?
I have a bunch of
What?
stories, but like I'll tell you this one, and then we jump into your story. But
Man.
so I used to work for stand up for Comedy Central. Pete Davidson dropped his stand up special for
Mhm.
Comedy Central at the time, his hour, and so he's come
Got you.
in and he came in and he was doing a photo shoot for his special. So he did his photo shoot, and I just jump in the elevator because I'm like, man, I'm gonna go get some Starbucks. I jump in the elevator and he pulls up. He's like, yo, hold it. And it's like the person I work with, like basically my supervisor and the team, pulls up
Yeah.
with Pete Davidson, and she's like, oh, this is Pete. And
What?
I go, oh, what up? And I'm like, yo, man, what's good? And he's just like, I was just like, yo, I
Wow.
was like, what I said? I said, man, you're pretty funny. He turns around and I look at him, and his eyes are just bloodshot red. And I was just like, and
What?
he's like, thanks, man. And I was just
Oh
like,
my God. He was out of here.
he
He was
was
out of
gone.
here.
He was gone. I will tell you this, wearing a full, like the old 90s, like not 90s, old 2000, like Bape hoodie, like the old joint. Yeah.
Ooh. Pete really that guy when it comes
Uh-huh.
to like streetwear, sneakers. Yeah, that's crazy,
Yeah.
bro.
I
Oh
mean,
my goodness. That's
it
amazing.
was wild.
Pete Davidson, that's crazy.
All right.
Wow.
So, but you're here to answer the question that I ask everybody each week. And that question is, what's your first kicks? What's that first pair of sneakers you absolutely needed to have?
My first pair that I absolutely had to have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know what? This is gonna be kind of funny, man.
All right.
So my first pair I actually had to have was a pair of Tommy Hilfiger sneakers. It
What?
wasn't a Nike, it wasn't an Adidas, it wasn't a Reebok. It was the Tommy Hilfiger Fly. And they retroed that shoe.
Uh-huh.
It was a fly sneaker. And I'm gonna tell you what it looked like. So it looked so crazy. I was like, I love them. I love the Jordans. I loved everything all the other kids was rocking.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, I was like this kid that I just love loud colors and just crazy stuff, man. So I remember this dropped early '90s. And the cool thing I loved about them was, so the way they looked, they had this thick white midsole. The
Mm-hmm.
midsole said Tommy Hilfiger. It looked like a wave.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the upper, there were laces, but there was like a shroud. But the shroud was a big Tommy Hilfiger flag, and it
Mm.
zipped up the middle. It zipped up over the laces.
Yeah, I got him
I don't
right
know if you
here.
don't know what I'm talking about.
I got him right
So,
here. Known as the
yep,
icon. Uh,
that's the one.
I got you. I guess I'll read this whole little excerpt right here by Hypebeast. Let's see. A couple months ago, this is during in 2018. Tommy Hilfiger returned to the runway for a sporty spring 2018 presentation. Originally introduced in 1997, the Fly quickly attracted the feet of beloved celebrities and artists. Now rechristened the Icon sneaker is back as part of the Tommy Hilfiger Spring 2018 capsule collection. Here we go. The 2018 iteration boasts hidden lacing, a center zip, signature Tommy Hilfiger branding, and boldly branded midsole. Along with this shoe, new denim offerings, and well, we don't care about that. But
that
I see
was the one.
this shoe is wild. I would say that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But I loved it because it combined a lot of things for me. Because like so, back then, like I said, I love sneakers. I thought so many sneakers were cool, but there was that one because it zipped up. I thought that was cool.
Hmm.
And it mixed in the streetwear because Tommy obviously was super white hot
Hmm.
at that time. And so my stepdad, I never forget, man, my stepdad, he kept me, my brother, my sister. So I'm the youngest of three.
Hmm.
And so he kept my brother, my sister, and me all in mad Tommy Hilfiger.
Hmm.
So like I love Tommy as a brand anyway.
Hmm.
And then it had the green pop. It had the green on the tongue and on the back, and it reminded me of Nickelodeon. We were just talking about the slime. So I was like, oh, they're green, they're Tommy, and there's some fly sneakers. I gotta have them. I gotta have them. I bugged them. I finally got a pair back in the day, man. And look, I almost pulled the trigger on the retro. I'm not gonna hold you, but I didn't. I ended up not getting them. But that was the first one where I was like, nah, I gotta have those. And then after that, it was like more J's, more Air Max, stuff like that, like around like 98, 99,
Hmm.
because that's around the time that Nike was killing like a lot of like Air Max models and stuff like that. 97, 98, 99. That was when the Air Max Plus dropped, the blue colorway that
Hmm.
everybody had. That was a couple years later, but them Tommies, those were the ones for me. I had
Man,
them.
I have such a crazy history with Tommy Hilfiger. Like growing up in Queens, Corona, Queens, with those, like
Oh,
it was like Tommy Hilfiger and Nautica, and you had to have those Air Max Pluses. Like,
there you go.
yeah.
That's the trifecta right there. Yep. And the Nautica, don't get me started on the Nautica. My brother, my older brother, he's the oldest. He
Hmm.
was 90s everything. So Nautica, Eastland, Polo, all of that. No Limit albums. That was my brother all day. So yeah, I feel you.
Were you so like this? Was the you said you moved out of New Jersey at 4,
Yeah.
so this
Yeah.
was St. Louis. You were doing
Yeah,
this
this
in
was
St.
St.
Louis.
Louis.
Okay.
Yeah, this was St. Louis. Yeah, I was there during the whole era, the No Limit era,
Hmm.
the Nelly era. I remember when all that first started, the Chingy, all that. Yeah, like this was during that era. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's
St. Louis. St. Louis was fun. It was a time.
what I mean that. So then you get. Did you get a taste? Did you when you got these Tommy Hilfigers? Was it a taste of hip hop that you were getting, or were you like entrenched in sneaker? Like people were talking to you about sneakers after that point.
They were talking to me about sneakers after that point,
Hmm.
honestly. Like because when I wore those to school, it was crazy because the guys that were wearing the Jordans, they were looking at me like, "Hey, what's that?"
Hmm.
Because it was like the equivalent back then of like wearing a Versace shoe or wearing like you didn't normally wear the designer shoe.
Hmm.
Like you wore the clothing and stuff, but you didn't really wear the shoe like that. So when I went to school, that was one thing I actually liked was the fact that I was wearing something nobody
Nobody
else
else got.
had.
Yeah.
All the other kids, they had the 11s on, they had the whatever, all this is 97. So it was like the 12s they maybe had on. They had it on, but nobody had the Tommies though,
Hmm.
right? So like they looked at me like, David, what are those? I'm like, y'all ain't got these. Don't worry about that. Y'all keep them Jordans over there. You ain't got the Tommies though.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, but it kind of got me in the cool kids club, man, with the sneakers. So
I
yeah.
mean, was that middle school when you broke these out?
This was Yeah, this was like fifth, sixth grade.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, it was like fifth. Yes, it was like middle school age when I broke them out, and it's like, yeah, they looked at me like, all right, because I was like Tommy head to toe at that point, like literally. So it was like, dang, that's how you feel. But I had to come out fresh. I was a Payless kid back in the day. Like honestly,
Right.
like I love sneakers,
Hmm.
but like my stepdad and stuff, we were like that middle class suburban family. So like they didn't really. They were like, I'm not paying $100 for those. Whatever. So like. We dressed well, but they just didn't see it for shoes. They were like, "Well,
Hmm.
you're gonna tear them up. Why are we spending that much money?" So, but when I wear them Tommies, and then I went back, and then yeah, it was on
That
after
was it
that.
was over
So
after that. The
it was on.
what
Yep,
when you transition into high school, right? I mean, because I'm thinking I want to say we're about the same age. So
yeah,
the transition into high school, height of in St. Louis, Nelly, St.
bruh,
Lunatics going crazy. Like
bruh,
what was that like?
man. Freshman year of high school,
Hmm.
right? So freshman year of high school was 2000. So I graduated high school 2004.
Hmm.
So freshman year, I'm still in St. Louis. Yeah, man. I mean, we're at the height of everything, and so early 2000s is high fashion. It's streetwear. High. We were just talking about this on Twitter today. Denim suits, oversized everything.
Hmm.
So that's really what it was back then. And I was trying to be as in it as much as I could be. But so the thing about it was, so at the turn of 2000, my mom and my stepdad actually got divorced. So when that happened, we immediately went like broke again, like
Hmm.
very broke. So I still had, some of my fly stuff from when we was living in a house, but at that point, I was starting to kind of outgrow some of it. So my mom was trying to like keep me in some of the Nautica, some of the hot stuff, but I
Hmm.
was like kind of sitting on the sidelines for the next few years, kind of watching everybody else get fresh. But that was back when again, when Nelly popped off, a lot of people don't even notice, but we weren't rocking Air Force Ones like that.
Hmm.
Like the shoe in St. Louis was the Reeboks. We was wearing Reebok Classics
Oh,
back
really?
in the day. Yep.
Wow.
So little known fact about me as well. So, because you talked about living in New York.
Hmm.
So I moved to New York for like 2 months. So it was crazy.
That's
So when my mother got divorced,
the fastest New York
super fast.
experience.
So, bruh, so like all of my all of my family on my father's side,
Mhm.
all my family, they are in New York, from New York. So I have heavy, heavy New York influence.
Mhm.
So when my parents got divorced, well, my mom, my stepdad, when they got divorced, basically my aunt on my father's side, she reached out and was like, "Hey, come to New York. We got you. We'll take care of you." Da 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 da. There's a sneaker story actually in this story as well,
Mhm.
and I don't even tell it that much. But we go to New York, best time ever, bro. Let me tell you. So this is 2000. So freshman year of high school, I start off in St. Louis. I go to New York. I really felt like I went like in Nelly's footsteps. It was crazy. So like, because Nelly was in New York. So
Mhm.
like we go out there, whatever, we do our thing. And I'll never forget, man, I had these busted Reebok classics on my feet. All white, but I mean again, by that point they were literally like talking.
Yeah.
So we get out there and I never forget, my aunts and them, they have money in New York. We were in Long Island, just to give you some context.
Excuse me.
So Baldwin, we was in Baldwin. So yeah. So yeah, we get out there and I'll never forget, man. My cousin, I had a big cousin out there, Mark, and my aunt comes in our room one day. We are living with them at the
Mhm.
time. So we just moved to my aunt's house. So she's like, take David shopping. And so she gave him some money or whatever to take me shopping. And I will never forget, man. I got he took me shopping, and it just happened to be on the day we went to Roosevelt Field,
Mhm.
and Destiny's Child was there that day signing autographs. I never
Wow.
forget. So met Beyonce. This was Beyonce, Kelly, and who else was it? Michelle.
Michelle?
I think Michelle was with them at that point. I don't remember,
Mhm.
but yeah. So met them, but we went to the mall. I got the Nike Zoom GP, the Gary Paytons,
Okay.
the white with the little like 3M
Uh-huh.
swirl with the orange swoosh. I got that pair. I thought I was the man. But anyway, I digress. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm rocking those. But yeah, and then we left New York, man. It didn't work out, man. There were bumping heads. It didn't work out.
Mhm.
So we went back to St. Louis. And I remember by the time we got back to St. Louis, they saw me with the Gary Paytons on, and they was like, what's those? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, like I was that guy, but yeah, I got back and yeah, man, it was a time in St. Louis, man. We had a lot of fun, man. They put Nelly on. I never forget, man. They put country grammar on the
Hmm.
radio on a show called Pump It or Dump It. And we was gonna make or break Nelly that night. And I remember they said, "All right, y'all, we're gonna play this new song by this local artist. It's called Country Grammar, y'all. Let me know." And man, we pumped it, and the rest was history. So but St. Louis was a time, man. We had a lot of it was a lot of fun, man. St. Louis was
That's
that's home.
wild.
That's still home.
Hmm.
That's home forever for me. So yeah.
I love that. I mean, I've only had one other guest who is from St. Louis, and it was a while ago. So like, but he opened a store out there, so we got a taste of like
Oh,
like the sneaker culture, him helping build sneaker culture out there. So that was really
yeah,
dope.
that's fire.
Tristan, shout out to Tristan. But
Shout out to Tristan.
the I mean you talk about bringing the Gary Paytons back and the height of Nelly, and I
Mhm.
mean this is probably before the Air Force One, or definitely before
Yes.
the Barkley. So
Yep,
yeah.
yep. This is before all that because the Air Force One was '02. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean Nelly, he popped off Country Grammar in 2000,
Hmm.
and that is crazy because the run he had, like with Country Grammar alone, was a 2-year long run.
Hmm.
Now mind you, let me set the scene, right? Because in St. Louis at the time, Nelly is popping off. The Rams go to the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
The Cardinals are going to the World Series. Like, and we got the St. Louis Blues. So St. Louis is on fire. Like, I told people, I don't care what you say about whatever city you from. 2000 to like 2003, a little bit of four,
Uh-huh.
St. Louis had that locked down. So yeah, man, it was a fun time, man. It was a lot going on.
That's a lot.
It was
What was your
crazy.
first job to like? I mean, well, actually, before let me backtrack. So you get
Mhm.
the Gary Paytons, right? And now you're the rule of the roost. And I don't. That's such an old person term I just used, but whatever. So now you're the talk of the town. I'm even going older now. So
Thanks.
you're in high school. So like, does the
Yeah.
sneaker culture? Do you get a taste of sneaker culture doing being that, or like did you help like see, or were you part of this the tidal wave that was like, oh, I got to get those now, and so everybody starts coming in? Like, what was it? Where were you part of it? Like, what,
So I'll tell
expand
you,
on that?
not in St. Louis, but yes, when I moved to Alabama, because
Hmm.
that's really when the wave started, for me. So yeah, I mean, we
When'd you
was
move to
rocking stuff back
Alabama?
2002.
Okay, so yeah.
2002. Yep, 2002. So this was like literally like when Nellyville dropped, I never forget. I was
Hmm.
in St. Louis when the album dropped, but then it was like second half of the school year, 2002 I moved. So it was like the later part of 2002. So yeah, man, but when I came down here, yeah, I was definitely a part of that because like I was from St. Louis, man. I had braids. I was wearing iceberg at that
Hmm.
time. Like I was wearing a lot of stuff people weren't even up on. I
Looney Tune
talk different.
iceberg. That's Looney Tune iceberg.
Looney Tune iceberg. Looney Tune iceberg, man. Yes. So, I was wearing this stuff, man. I was dressing crazy. I had on Timberlands because I had, constructs, I had everything. And so I
Hmm.
moved down here. They were like, what's that? What's that? What's that? I remember I had this platinum FUBU denim suit, Fat Albert that I used to wear. Like, they wasn't up on that. So when I moved down, man, that was when Air Force Ones popped. And when Air Force Ones popped, '02 was an insane year for Air Force Ones, just period. This the
Yeah.
model. You had Concept Japan popping, you had so many things going.
Hmm.
So yeah, like I got Air Force Ones and stuff, and they were like, "Oh, that's crazy." And I remember I was dating this girl at the time, and she was from Anguilla and the West Indies Air
Hmm.
Force Ones, and she wasn't even into sneakers like that. She was like, "Well, he's always got on some shoes and da da da." But when the West Indies dropped, she was like, "Oh my God, I gotta have the West Indies Air Force Ones. Oh my God, oh my God." So like, yeah, people around school started like paying a little more because Nelly popped off with Air Force Ones.
Hmm.
So guess what? The new kid was from St. Louis,
Yeah.
right? So immediately when that popped off, they're looking at me like, okay, tell us everything about St. Louis. Like, what is happening in St. Louis? I'm like, oh, y'all ain't from around there. Y'all ain't from out there. Like I don't know about there around there. So
That's
I'm
when you
talking
start talking
crazy.
it, talking.
Yeah, I like right there, over there. So I'm laying it on thick at that point because I'm a St. Louis guy. So yeah, man. So I was like kind of a part of like kind of the beginning of them getting a feel for the culture, getting a feel for what we did. And when that shoe took over the world, like everybody was rocking Air Force Ones. And so they was looking at me like, all right, man, like what's the new forces? What should we be looking for? Da, da, da.
Mhm.
And for a minute, for a hot second, they was kind of off Jordans, like
Oh,
because
was that the
mind you,
shoe
this
in
old school.
Alabama?
That was kind of the shoe at that point
Hmm.
because people was like, yeah, we want to wear like, what these guys like really they're, down here they're just following the trends.
Hmm.
So like they were like Air Force Ones is the one. So yeah, they really started getting on that train, and we eventually made our way back around to the J's and everything
Hmm.
else. But yeah, that's really what it was, man. So it was fun. It was a good time, man. Sophomore year of high school, I'll never forget. The West Indies, those are the ones.
I mean, I don't know why they sat now, but it's wild.
Listen, listen, I got my pair. That's all I care about. I got mine in the closet. So, hey, whatever. And I need them yellow ones too. Them yellow ones are fire.
I mean, I'm trying to get
I
the
need
the
them.
cowboy version. I'm trying to get the cowboy boot version. The homie
Ooh,
Andy, he does the cowboy boot Air Force Ones, and he
a
he
word?
did one for the West Indies, and those look crazy. They look fire.
That's fire.
Yeah.
That's fire. Yeah, yeah, we need them.
The so then what was your first job, and what was that first pair that you were like, I'm after the cop.
Ooh,
I'm after
okay.
the cop.
Okay, so my first job, never forget it. It was at a clothing store called Rugged Warehouse. And it was like a low budget TJ Maxx,
Hmm.
basically. Um, so it was retail. I went the retail route. I didn't go the food route.
Hmm.
I was a cashier. I was making $6 an hour. I was 15, and I was working that job. Hated the job, but hey, it was money, so it was
Right.
what it was. Um, so I worked that man after school, and with that little money I was piecing together, the first pair that I went out and I copped. Let me think. What was the first pair that I really was like, I gotta have those? Probably, probably, geez, let me think. Okay, I'm thinking. Hold on. So, because I was wearing a little bit of everything back
Yeah.
then. So let me think. Like, I mean, and I was wearing like that was like Steve Madden weird shoe era with the square toe, because that was
Hmm.
like kind of like preppy era.
That was
Um,
over here. It was Diesel shoes with the square toe.
the diesel,
Hmm.
yep, the diesels. You know what? I'm thinking now. The first pairs that I got that I was like, man, I really gotta have those was probably. I'm not gonna hold you. I think it was some Jordan flights.
Okay.
I think it was
Wow.
some. I think it was some flights. Yeah, 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 yeah. It was a pair of. It was a pair of white and red flights. Those are the ones where I was like, I gotta have them. I gotta have them.
Hmm.
And I knew people was like up on retros and stuff. But again, I was always a little different. So I
Hmm.
was like, for a long time, I was like, I don't want to wear what everybody else got.
Hmm.
So the flights, there was like, I was like, oh, those kind of cool. Those kind of cool. And then like, dog, when I got them flights, I got clowned for them flights. They were like, "What are those? Those look insane. What are you? Why are you wearing those? You look like an idiot. Why would you buy those?" And I was like, "What you mean? What you mean? What you mean?" And I was like, "Nah, nah, nah. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that." So, dog, I'm gonna tell you one pair that really sticks out in my mind.
Yeah.
Um, the I don't know what year they dropped. Maybe you can help me out. The S Carters. That was another
The
one where I
S
was like,
Carters were 2014.
2014, something like that. Yeah, when did they drop? Because I was like, I know Reebok had an era. I was heavy on that
Right.
era.
It was
I had my
them.
flights.
It was them and the G units coming. Right. Like these came out first, but
Yeah, these are like G units. Yeah,
2000
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
2003, the white pair, that like all white pair.
Yep. Oh three. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like somewhere around there.
And I
Yeah,
know
oh
they
three.
came back
So it
out
was,
again when G Unit was going crazy, so they were like, "Oh, well, let's run them back."
yep,
Bad
yep,
decisions by
yep.
Reebok. That's why they're owned by
Horrible decisions.
Shaq and AI now.
That's a fact. Horrible decisions. But yeah, it was those. Like I'm trying to think around that time. Like a little later,
Hmm.
the Aqua 8s. What pair was the Aqua 8s? Was that oh 07, oh 06, oh
That
something? I
that
can't remember that
retro.
pair. Yeah, it was the retro. The retro for the 8s. Um, golly, what was that? Oh 07, oh
Oh
08, oh
seven,
07,
oh
oh
seven.
07.
Yeah.
That was one where I was like, I gotta have those.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think what was dropping around like oh 03, oh 04. What was dropping around then? I'm trying to think.
I
Like what
mean,
was hot? I'm really trying to think now because like I know I was copping in oh 04.
we got Zoom
Um,
generations. We got VC3s. Um
yeah. BC3s, yes,
2K3s,
yes.
the Flight 2K3s.
2K3s. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh
12s dropped that year, right? In oh 04?
let
What
me see.
12s was it that dropped? I feel like some 12s dropped in oh
New Buck
04.
12s.
Yes.
Mhm.
Though, yeah. Yeah. Because I was like, I know I had some 12s back then too, like around
Yeah.
graduation time from high school. So yeah, those are probably one of the ones where I was like, I really gotta have them
Mhm.
too. Those Jordan 12s, those were
Yeah.
fire.
I mean, I was
Yeah,
broke
man,
during that
golly,
year.
it was a lot. Listen,
Imagine being
yo,
able to buy SBs back then, man. Like
listen, like yo, like, and I missed the train for a while on the SBs. Like my homeboys was
uh,
rocking SBs, but back then it was really for the guys that really skated for real. So
yeah.
like, I wasn't skating like that. So like, yeah, I was like, oh, I left them for that. I wanted to look cool, and then like I said, I like to wear kind of the kind of obscure stuff, that people liked as
Mhm.
well before I got more into retros and stuff. So, but them 12s, I do remember them 12s though. I had to have those. I remember that. But yeah, man, it was a good year. It was some fire that came out around that time. Oh 05, oh 06, oh 07. Yeah. I
Mhm.
was just getting into it. I was a little brokey at that point, but I was starting
Right.
to do my little thing. Because I had my son in oh 07
Mhm.
too. So that kind of messed me up too, man. It's like I graduated in oh 04. I'm trying to be fly and flashy. Oh 05, I go
I
to
guess you're a
college in
little
oh
too
4 and oh
fly.
05.
You're a little too fly
Bruh.
because
So I was a
you
little
had a
too
son.
fly. I never done too far, and I kept. No, I want to tell you, in the midst of all this, though, I did keep a pair of all white Air Force Ones. Those
Uh-huh.
are always in a rotation. But
Mhm.
outside of that, I had my son, man, in oh 06. Oh 07, he was born in oh 07,
Mhm.
and I was pledging the frat, so I was broke at that time anyway. So I wasn't really copping until 2008.
Yeah.
2008, I went crazy.
Bananas.
2008, I went bananas because that's when I started dating a real sneakerhead. Like I thought I was a little sneakerhead
Mhm.
at that point. I was like, hey, I got a little clout. I know a little thing or two about shoes. No, I started dating somebody in oh 08.
Mhm.
Dog, changed my life. Changed my life, man. So like during that time, she had a whole rack. Like I went to her house and she had like a rack of sneakers, and she was a size 3. She was
Mhm.
preschool, so all her stuff was
Jesus.
cheaper. So yo, this is
$40.
like 2009, 2010 G-Shock era. She had a gang of G-Shocks. She got me into G-Shocks, and she got me heavy into sneakers, man. So
Mhm.
yeah, it took off after that. But yeah, it was rough times for a couple years.
I mean, I don't know how were you able to even handle like pledging to a frat, having a son, and like going to school.
Man,
That's like how were you able to do
man.
that?
I tell people it was temporary insanity, but I'm not gonna lie to you. So it was a lot, man. It was really hard, like going and I was working too at the
Mhm.
time, right? So like to take care of my son. So yeah, I'm doing all of this, and I don't know, man. It just I had a lot more energy back then than I got now. I'll tell you that because I would like my day would look like I would go to class first thing in the morning,
Mhm.
drop my son off because my son, if he was with me or he was with his mom, but like drop him off, daycare, whatever, go to class, go to work, and then that night I was pledging.
Mhm.
So like my day, I was up, at the crack, and then I wasn't going back to sleep until 1 or 2 o'clock the next morning after,
Jeez.
pledging all night.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I pledged for, 6 months.
Mhm.
So yeah, like that was tough. So when I finished, when I crossed, whew, man. So but yeah, it was hard times, man. It was rough.
What
For real. But
what kept you motivated to actually be, in everything? You didn't want to drop anything. Like you could have, I mean, I would say one thing could have been dropped. Like you could have been like, "All right, you
yeah,
know."
I definitely could have dropped the frat. But honestly, I'm gonna tell you, man, the thing about the frat for me,
Mhm.
like it was really important for me to finish something that I had started because like up to that point, like I was always kind of bad at like quitting on things,
Hmm.
and I know, as a creator, as a podcaster, you know how it is when you get those moments of frustration when it's like, man, I just want to drop, this thing and, whatever. But for me, that was like one of the first times where I was like, no, like I'm going to see this thing through. And fun fact, um, my pledging time.
Hmm.
So when we first started, it was first semester of college. There were 10 of us online. Everybody dropped but me.
Hmm.
And so by the end of that semester, they were like, well, we can't just cross one guy. We're going to keep it going into the next semester. So
Jeez.
seven more guys came on. No, six
Uh-huh.
more guys came on. So ultimately, it was 17 guys on my line. It still ended with just one, just
Wow.
me. So when I crossed in '07, I crossed as a solo. It was just me. And even though it got crazy, I was like, I'm sticking it through, man. I don't care. I was like, y'all done do whatever you want to me. I'm not stopping. And so it was just like kind of that, kind of that thing like, I'm not letting them break me. It's like the idea of like, because when you're pledging,
Hmm.
they want you to quit. They're in your face every night, like, nah, you can't do this. You're not built for this. You're not that. You know that. So for me, I'm like, nah, like I gotta prove it to me,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna prove it to y'all that I can stick this thing through. So, and I had to keep food on the table. I had to keep my son fed, so I had to keep working, and I wasn't trying to be, just whatever out here. Down here it's really easy to fall into that life. So I was like, well, I gotta stay in school. So yeah, man, I just had to juggle it. Had to juggle it all.
Jeez. That's wild.
Crazy.
What did you go to school for?
So I went for it's funny, man. So I went for business
Hmm.
management, but it was a discipline in what they call acquisition management.
Hmm.
So it was a new discipline that basically focused on government contract acquisition, which
Hmm.
is my day job now. So like my 9 to 5 right now, I do planning and scheduling for the government. Basically, like when the government awards a contract to a company like Lockheed or Boeing,
Hmm.
so they have to basically come up with this really complicated, complex schedule that says basically how they're going to do something from start to finish, each step along the way. And then
Hmm.
they have to connect all these things together all the way
Hmm.
down. It'd be like 10,000 lines, 20,000 lines of stuff. My job is to create those crazy schedules, link them all together, analyze them, and deal with like the engineers and stuff. So that's like what
Jesus.
I do for my 9 to 5.
I could
It's
not
complicated.
I
It's a
could
lot.
not do that.
It's
No, no
crazy.
thank you.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, but that's how I went to school for. So like government contracts,
Hmm.
contract law, stuff like that. Yeah.
Cuz
Yeah.
straight up, if somebody asked me what did Kari go to school for, I would have instantly said journalism. Like you just threw me off for
That
you
would
know.
have been dope. I missed my calling. People say I got the gift of gab, man, because like I always loved poetry. That
Hmm.
was always a first love of mine. I love writing. My old social media name was Lyrical Fetish before it was
Hmm.
Sneaker Fetish because I was heavy into music. I was that guy, man. I used to rap, right? With this, listen, this is my first
We
kick, so I'm giving it all to you.
we
So
used to rap. I'm here with you.
there you go. So I used to rap. So it was
Uh-huh.
like, poetry led into rapping. And I used to do like mixtapes and the whole nine. I recorded them myself and all that. But yeah, man. So yeah, like I should have went to journalism. I could have did something with that. But oh well. It is
I
what it
mean,
is. Oh well.
you're able to be
I did
on
okay.
the news without a journalism degree. You're fine.
This is true. This is true. This is true. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful.
so so I mean, you pledged, you went to school, where
Yeah.
does sneaker culture like grab you where you're like, okay, I need to start. Like where does it grab you where you're like, man, I think this is part of me, like where at what point in your life like
Yeah.
does it actually pull you in?
I'm telling you, man. So honestly, I think a lot of it had to do when I was dating that girl, man. It
Hmm.
was like around 2010, and seeing how crazy. So here's the crazy about it. So I love sneakers. I love sneakers. I considered myself a sneakerhead
Hmm.
back then, like I said, but I didn't realize how crazy it got. I was like, oh, y'all really do this for real.
Yeah.
So the girl I was with, her name was Alicia. She worked at T-Mobile in
Hmm.
the mall. So the T-Mobile stand in our mall, may that mall rest in peace. It's now no longer with us.
Hmm.
But it was right across from Finish Line.
Hmm.
So what I learned through her, because when she was copping sneakers, I started copping a lot of shoes. Like what I realized, number one, that's when I learned like a lot about just the appreciation of it, because I got cool with all the guys that worked in Finish Line, because
Mm-hmm.
that's where we were just copping everything at that point. So I got cool with the managers, got cool with the employees. So like that's when they introduced me to like Nike Talk and the forums
Mm-hmm.
and like why like all the different models. Cause I'm thinking Jordan retros, this, that, the third, just the small stuff. But I'm not thinking about, all these other like these LEs and these lifestyle drops that are
Yeah.
happening, these burgundy fives and your chambrays that are dropping, and all these other drops, these inline drops
Mm-hmm.
that are happening that aren't the biggest thing out, but these are the things that are like, the people really in the culture, they really love. And
Mm-hmm.
so I started loving every colorway. I'm like, yo, I need to know everything about all of these at that point. And from there, man, it just, I was hooked. I was hooked, man. So that's really where the love really started, man. I'll say like around the turn of 2009,
Mm-hmm.
2010-ish, somewhere around there. So I tell people, in terms of sneakerhead royalty, even still, people be like, I was a little late to the game. I wasn't one of those guys in 95 that was on 155th and third, over at, mom and pop at Tom, Dick, and Harry's. I wasn't that guy, man. But yeah, but around '09 is when the bug really hit me, and I was like, nah, like I'm in this
No,
for real.
yeah, I
So
I feel you. I'm not one of those either. Like I do love because of this podcast. I got to meet a ton of those dudes that be out there and that was
yep,
out there during those times. Or like I had Dante Ross on, who was part of literally the birth of sneaker culture. So
that's fire.
it's wild to have these ranges. But me, I've told everybody,
Yep,
if you've listening to this, or this is your first time listening to this, I started collecting
yep,
with SBs, and then from there it pulled me in because I was super online. I was like I said, I was rapping, but I was rapping online, and then
yep,
sneakers online. I was very online. I'm probably
yep,
still too
yep.
much online right now, but but the like it was like learning about your Orchard Streets drops, the Pigeons release,
Yes,
learning about like SBs in general, and just like how like all those
yes,
other models that came out too, where it wasn't just because I always felt like even now I think it's very cut and dry of like what's mainstream sneakers, right? And back then, mainstream sneakers, 2008,
hmm
that's about the same time that I started collecting too. 2008, everybody was Jordans, Jordans, Jordans. But then when you start,
Jordans.
yeah, once you start jumping into Nike SB, then you're like, whoa, there's New Balances, there's this and that, and because people start
Yes,
bringing it into your purview, and
exactly.
that's when you start having like a real love for it, and it's just,
Yep.
I mean, I don't. That's why I'm so curious of like how you got into it because Alabama does. I don't
Yeah.
know of any sneaker store in Alabama.
No, no, it was not existent. But I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you, that's why I'm so appreciative of those finish line guys, because like I
Hmm.
never, one of my guys, he was a manager there. That's my ace to this day, man. My guy John,
Hmm.
he was that guy. He was the OG's OG. He loved everything. He
Hmm.
loved New Balance. He loved every brand, man. So like through him, I'm learning what else is in the store and what else is on the wall. Yo, John, what are these? What are these? Oh man, these are such a so, these are such a so. So like, yeah, we love Jordans at that time,
Hmm.
but then he's the one that really put me on game to there's so much other stuff, out there to explore. So he really opened up my eyes, man. Shout out to my guy John, man. If you want to have somebody on, by the way, I'm plugging him.
Hmm.
Kicks on my career. That's my guy. He's on
That's
Twitter.
your that you
Yo,
tagged me on in a post. That's I was like
yes.
wondering. I was
When
doing
I
a little
tell
bit of
you,
research. I was just like, who is this?
dog, if you want to have some OG talk like that, man,
Yeah.
listen, that man is an OG for real. But
Hmm.
yeah, he really opened my eyes, man, because like you said, down here in the South, sneaker culture wasn't really more than Jordans and what was hot.
Hmm.
But like he showed me, like, nah, bro, like these da da da, these Sons of Mars, these New Balance, these Asics over here, low, like check them out, So every day I walk in there, like, John, yo, what you got for me? And he's like,
Hmm.
yo, peep these. And this was back Finish Line days when Finish Line used to do Winter Circle. You remember Winter Circle?
Hmm.
So like when you spent $100, you was
Yeah.
getting $20 back,
$20
and we
back,
were
bro.
stacking. We were stacking them
Uh
coupons.
huh.
So like we walk in, fanning out the coupons, like, yo, I got 200. What are we
And then
doing?
the
So
best thing to do because this is how I forgot what sneaker I bought, but I would stack up those, and then you wait for your birthday because they give you the extra $20 on top of that, and then you have two something.
Yes.
You're like, yo, let's go.
There you go. There you go. There you go. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, we were stacking them, man. So yeah, we and that was the thing. We just the more we you would spend, the more you would get. So we copping hand over fist now, so we can keep racking up the coupons. So yeah, man. But yeah, that's really when it got me, man. It hit me ever since, for real.
I mean, all
Yeah.
right, so we going through your career now. So so now where does you wanting to take sneakers and make it part of like your online persona? Like, what was the
Yeah.
influence into you being like, all right, man, I'm gonna just talk about sneakers now. I'm gonna get in front of this camera. Like, what motivated you to get to that point?
Two guys mainly.
Mm-hmm.
Two guys mainly. Um, so when I was making music, um, I was on YouTube. My music YouTube channel is still up,
Mm-hmm.
but I was watching a lot of YouTube, and I love sneakers. I used to talk about sneakers in my raps.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But like, there were two guys, man, that I was like, I was watching a lot of guys back then, and I didn't even know who they were. I was watching Nightwing. I was watching old Tony D. I was watching Friendalations. I was
Mm-hmm.
watching Yo Auntie, and all these guys, but Sneak Geeks. But uh, the first guy, it was George Keel the
Mm-hmm.
third. George was doing Nice Kicks content back in the day. And I thought that the thing was so fire about it was, number one, here was a black man,
Mm-hmm.
right, that was well spoken, that, was not doing a lot of wild stuff. And there's something out there for everybody. But I know that for me, I always knew, like, okay, I'm not like the wild, crazy, off the wall. Like, I'm going to be like more precise and more surgical and more research. I've always been a documentary junkie.
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved stories, right? I always want to know why. So George, seeing what he did in a real journalistic manner,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, he's dope. And then, of course, after kind of the era of George Keel, in came Jacques Slade,
Yeah.
right? So Jacques, post Kicks on Fire days,
Mm-hmm.
when he kind of started taking off with himself, and I was really watching him, and I would sit back and I would just be so impressed with the way that they presented these shoes, man,
Mm-hmm.
like the details and telling stories and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I think I could do this. And I sat with my channel for about 2 years
Mm-hmm.
before I ever posted a video
Well,
to
welcome
it.
to this podcast. It took me
So
2 years to put this together.
you know what I'm saying? You know?
Yeah.
So I sat because I was so nervous, man. I was like, nobody knows me.
Yeah.
Like, I, I love doing my music, but the music was really slowing down at that point. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I have all these shoes and I want to tell their stories and I want to talk about them, but it's like, I'm not Jacques. I'm not Tony D Too Wild. He's got 20,000 subscribers on his channel. He's got 50,000, 100,000. So like, I don't, so I was really nervous to jump in, man. But that's
Mm-hmm.
really the guys that really made me want to start doing it. It was Jacques and it was George, man. Shout out to the both of them. For
That's
real.
that's dope. It's funny
Yeah.
because I found Jock I think later because I was
Mhm.
on. I mean, Friend Relations always had SBs, so when he would post,
Right.
yeah, he was like the SB guy. When he would post
Thanks.
nsb.org, which was my main forums during the time. It
Mhm.
was always like, "Yo, new friend relations, got to watch it." So then we were all watching. We get like, "Yo, man, it's just crazy." So
Yep.
that
Yep.
like I didn't really it did like content creating, and I mean we could talk about like I have a little content creating group chat, so like we could talk about this question that was talked about in there, but the
Nice.
the way it was like I didn't see it as like, oh, I can talk about sneaker stories on YouTube to me, right? It was always like, for some
Mhm.
reason, I don't know, I never thought about it as being creative or like as something like I can do,
Mm.
or because when it came to creative, I mean, I do graphic design, I don't draw, but I can edit a video. I mean, you were just talking about me editing the podcast this week. So I,
Yeah.
I'm very technical in terms of those, but like to get in front of a camera, it always took so much, right? Of like being like, okay, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. And I've been in commercials, and like I've been in music
Oh
videos
man.
and stuff like that. So like I've been in front of a camera
That's
before.
crazy.
So
Oh man.
yeah, so like I in a non-speaking role, like I can do it easily, but getting in front of camera
Right.
is always I always feel like I don't understand there's so many people that look like us, right? Like, or
Yeah.
people of color that can be that voice that they want to see, and a lot of people
Yeah.
are like, I can't do it, I can't do it. But then,
Right.
but like, why? Like Tyler Creator has a great quote, of like,
Mm.
why should you be afraid of something that you put out fails? You put it out. It's either going to be,
It's
some people are
true.
going to hate it, some people are going to like it. Like, but
Touche.
what's stopping you from putting it out? Just put it out. Like, who gives a shit? Like,
True.
you know.
That's true. Yeah, that's
So
facts. Nah, you're right.
yeah, and so I love the what gets me upset is like you post your videos on TikTok. I'm straight 100% with you right now, right? And what gets me
Yeah.
upset is that you post your videos on TikTok and they are very well produced. You go into detail about your
Mm.
sneakers, and then
Yeah.
if I look at somebody, say if like a Steve Nato, or I look at somebody like a Brian Ware, and they're doing a
Man,
bullshit review, don't even talk about the story, and they talk about the same shoe that you do, why do they get
you're
the more
doing
views? Yeah,
numbers.
they're getting the more
Yeah.
views, they're getting the following, they're getting the comments, but then when it comes to like, you've seen I know you've seen my videos, and so like I see,
For sure.
yeah, and so like I see your videos, I'm always like, okay, I gotta make sure I like your stuff, try to help bring
Same.
this
Yep.
this circle to push us forward, but it's so tough
Absolutely.
when stuff is just like content that you see is not like how it was when I would say like when Jock Slade and Tony D2 Wild were putting out stuff and people were being more receptive of it, and we were able to put black faces and talk about stuff that we want to talk about. Now it's just straight up,
That's
you
facts.
know, nothing but,
Yeah.
yeah, white faces talking about it. But like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it. Like, let's keep
Hmm.
it a bean. Like, that's really what it is, man. I mean, it hasn't been easy, man. Like, we could really talk some real talk
Hmm.
because, I haven't really talked much about it, but I mean, we can really get into it. I mean, it is tough as a black man in the industry right now because, no matter how hard we work, the Red Queen's race is still a thing.
Hmm.
Like that's a thing. Having to run twice as fast to get half as much out here, man. And I'm gonna tell you, like, when it comes to amplification, especially when you're in this world and you start talking brand deals, sponsorships,
Hmm.
getting the big stuff that really gets you out there, unfortunately, a lot of the brands, they want a very clean cut image. And unfortunately, you know, a white face, especially a white male face, is always going to be naturally more brand friendly
Hmm.
than a black face. Just naturally.
Hmm.
So, if somebody needs some talent for something, and unfortunately, I hate to say it like this, but they don't have to be as good either.
Hmm.
I mean, I can research the shit out of a sneaker, and to your point, I mean, I can give you production, lighting, editing, facts, the whole nine. And somebody can just pop out, and because they look the way that they look, everybody can be like, wow, they killed that.
Hmm.
And it's like, I salute those guys because whether they know it or not, they use what works for them to their advantage.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? Like I'm telling you, the only person that could get 1 million subscribers on YouTube in 2023 without being a reseller or being a hype beast is a Seth Fowler.
Hmm.
Like it didn't surprise me that he hit, and now he's at 1.1. He's got another 100,000 subscribers since he hit his million.
Hmm.
And I love that for him. Like I love what he's done with Apothecary. I love what he's doing. But dog, like, ain't no black faces getting that kind of amplification. We can have the same shoe. We can put out a early review at the same time.
Hmm.
But again, when you're building that following, you have a naturally bigger following. Like I said, you're more brand friendly. You're gonna get picked for more things, and it just it is what it is. Just the nature of the beast, man. So, and I recognize that when I came into YouTube, I tell people all the time. I started my channel about 3 years too late.
Hmm.
I tell people that all the time. Like my brand of content is not the brand of content that grows quickly on
Hmm.
YouTube. I think that the engagement is dope. I think that the people that like it love it. But at the same time, I also recognize that that is not what the majority of the viewing audience that's watching sneaker videos today
Hmm.
are watching, right? Like these are kids, man. These are 15, 16-year olds that what do they want to do? They want to be resellers,
Yeah.
right? They want to watch people spend a lot of money. They want to make sure their shoes not fake, right? So like that's really who's watching this content these days. But like the
Mhm.
guys like us that watch the Franelations and love these shoes, like that's you talking 2012, 2013, 14, 15 era, maybe,
Mhm.
But then when you have people like 2J's, when JC came in, changed the game.
Yeah. It
Changed the game.
it's definitely a little, I mean, I don't think it's mind-boggling, but I also think it's just like a lot of people always tell me, and I'm pretty sure people tell you the same thing, is if you make dope stuff, people will show up, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I've heard
and
it.
I get it, but like my thing has always been like, all right, I have my message. I know what I want to put out. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
jump into, all right, let me just start doing sneaker reviews. This gonna get the clicks. Like I don't like
Right.
what my thing was like, okay, I'm gonna do a podcast because not there's not many sneaker podcasts, right?
It's a fact.
There, and then at the same time it's like, okay, I can get a guest on and we just have a conversation, and it doesn't have to strictly, because like I'll tell you straight up, when I first started this podcast I was very like, so tell me
Mhm.
this first, give me your first sneaker store, give me blah blah blah, like I was hitting people with like 10, 15 questions and like,
Checklist.
yeah,
Yep.
checklist questions, and I realized
Mhm.
that was not the moves quickly after. And
Yeah,
now, this is more free form, we can talk about anything, and
I love it.
it's I think it's definitely, it's a lot easier for me to sell it to people of being like, you don't have to be into sneakers to listen to this, right? Everybody has a
Facts.
story, and everybody has one sneaker in their entire life that they're like, I have to go get that. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
You can literally be like, this is this New Balance that I saw some kid wear and I went to go get him. Like that's the story, and then we can talk
Yep.
about, I don't know,
Yep.
Smash Brothers for the next hour. Like, that that the versatility of creating content is that. And so I bring it back to like
Mhm.
my group chat with my creative friends, like with my TikTok friends. And so they're,
Yeah.
they're the question was like, what stops us from making it to the next level? And I'm oh and then
Mm.
out of everybody in there, there's only one white guy, but like at the same time, it's like he's already at
Mhm.
100,000 followers on TikTok, so he was able to get he's able, but he's not. He's like, I don't want to make this my
Yeah.
career, so I'm just doing this for fun. This is just this is like, I'm
Wow.
talking to my group chat. That's what he create, what how he does, how all of them besides me do their content.
Mhm.
For me, I do it out of, and I said it, like I do it out of, I want this podcast to be successful, so I
Right.
should make content to go whatever, and I'll push the content like,
To accompany it.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I mean, straight up, everybody listening to this, my podcast content does garbage compared to me talking shit on TikTok. So
Yo,
so
hey, but that's all right though,
yeah.
because to me, I mean, but I think it's meaningful, but you're also feeding the growth machine. I think, you kind of answer your own question there. You got to
Mhm,
feed the machine, man. But hey, I love the podcast. Like I guess that's been my whole thing. I've also had times where I'm like, should I switch up what I'm doing?
mhm,
Should I feed into this a little more? Should I do this? Should I do that a little more? But I've always tried to find ways. And I'm gonna tell you, as a creative,
mhm,
this is where if I get stuck anywhere the most, if something keeps me up at night the most, it's finding ways to feed the growth machine while still remaining true to my brand
mhm,
and my, who I am, my voice, without, not even knowing who I am anymore. And so I did a video one time and it was a beautiful marriage. It was about taxes.
mhm,
And I remember I made this video and I made the video because I literally had nothing to talk about. I had no shoes because it's expensive having a YouTube where you review shoes. You gotta buy shoes all the time,
yeah.
and now you gotta buy early shoes all the time. So like, I didn't have nothing to talk about, and I was like, I was looking around, and I found this old tax bill from when I had gotten sued by the
Mhm,
IRS back in the
mhm.
day for like 30 grand, and I was like, damn, this was
Wait,
a
how did
crazy
that happen?
situation, dog. So I called myself trying to be a reseller at one point.
Okay.
I love shoes. I got a little connect. I ain't even going front. I'm gonna tell you to you. I had a little connect down in Florida. She was plugged into Soulfly.
Uh-huh.
So I started doing deals through her. with Soulfly, I call myself being a little reseller or whatever. So I started doing like some little bulk deals here or there. I had a little partner at the time too, and she was bought in, and we were, selling shoes and pre-selling and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And I was just trusting mad people. So I was not only dealing with Soulfly for certain drops, but they were getting expensive. So I was like, oh, I gotta find sneakers from other places. So I'm looking around at little forums and
Hmm.
looking at little stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, those seem legit. Oh, da 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 da. So man, listen. I never forget, man. We hit a lick. It was the Columbia 11s back in 2000. What was that? 14, 13, 14,
13. I just
somewhere
made a
around that.
video on mine. So
Yep.
yeah.
No, when they brought those Columbias back,
Hmm.
boy, we thought we hit a lick. Man, I thought that somebody had grade school men's the whole nine. Man, we sold thousands of dollars worth of that shoe, man. I
Uh,
mean, we was just, and my price was good and everything. One by one, I started getting messages. Hey man, I think something's wrong with my shoe. Hey man, what's up with my shoe? Hey man, this don't look right. Hey man, da 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 da. Every one of them Columbias was fakes.
oh my
Every one of
god.
them were fake. So I had sold thousands of dollars worth of fakes.
Uh,
Never even realized it. So we had to refund everybody. So just so anybody listening to this knows, I made good on all of that. I refunded everybody their money. We went into major debt.
yeah.
But we refunded everybody their money for those shoes, man. But like, whew, I got out of it at that point. But yeah, like, yeah, I caught myself being a little reseller at that time, man. And so the bug kind of hit me at that point. But yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah, you talk about
I don't know,
the tax video
I
you
was
made.
so they yeah, so I got the PayPal sent me a 1099K at
Hmm.
that point because, mind you, even though we refunded everybody,
Hmm.
PayPal doesn't care that you refund everybody. All they care about is the money that hits your account.
Yeah.
$60,000 had come through my PayPal account by then.
Hmm.
So I had paid no tax. Now, mind you, I had a good paying job at the point too. So my tax bracket was already like 28%.
Hmm.
So like then I get this letter like, hey, bro, you got 60,000 extra dollars in income that you didn't report.
Mm.
What's good? You owe us 20 grand plus penalties plus fees plus we've readjusted you because now you're in a new tax bracket
Hmm.
with the money that you've made. So we gonna need that 30 grand. So that's how it happened, man. So I was thinking about, and they sued me over that. Like I literally got legal papers from the IRS,
Hmm.
over that. Like they were what to do about tax jail and stuff like that. Like, bro, I was on my way, but I was like, "No, I can't do this. So I had to work out like payment plans, and I had to thank goodness for my accountant because, bro, at the time I didn't realize like you can deduct.
Yeah.
There's deductions.
Hmm.
I hadn't deducted anything. So my account was like, okay, first of all, let's backtrack. What did you spend for everything? Let's find more deductions, trips you went on. So we deducted it. So we willed it all the way down to like 5 grand. And then I just worked out like a payment plan for the last 5 grand
Yeah.
with the government. Thank goodness for accountants. But anyway, so I did a video just like as a cautionary tale because I'm like, I'm not a reseller, but I know some of y'all are.
Yeah.
So maybe this video will connect with some resellers. Here's what happened to me when I got sued for 30 grand. The video took off. My first video that did over 100,000 views on my channel.
Wow.
It took off. And so I was like, wow. So that's when I realized, like, oh, we got something here. Like, if I can find a way to connect with that group and pull them into something, that interests them, maybe there's something here. So anyway, going back to your original point about feeding
Hmm.
the growth machine. Now, Steve Neto and all those guys, I don't Elliot Page and them. I don't know how they do what they do, bro, because it seems like they just do regular videos and they just pop out with like 1.2 million views.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but like hats off to them. I don't know how they do it. But what I do know when it comes to like short form and stuff like that is, you got to figure out a way to just feed that machine, man. I
Yeah.
mean, without feeling like, a shell of yourself in the meantime, it's hard, man. It's hard creating meaningful content.
Hmm.
I'm the crazy one that says ultimately my goal is to create evergreen sneaker centric content.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's so hard to do, because sneakers are fleeting,
Oh
like
yeah.
by the time you get a shoe in the mail, we're already on to the next thing. We're looking at shoes that are coming out in fall of 2024
I
right
mean,
now.
we
Like,
go back and forth about this on Twitter all the time. Well, X or whatever you want to
oh,
call it. But I
yeah.
mean, I keep telling it, and I made a video recently. Shout out to Squin. I mean, he's the homie regardless. But
Shout to Squin.
shout out to
Yeah.
Squin. But he posted shoes I don't wear, and it hurt me personally. Like,
Mhm.
especially with what's going on in the current times, and I always try to
Yeah.
give back as much as possible, whether that's volunteering my
Mhm.
time or talking to people or donating sneakers, which I did this year, to Growing Grails.
Yeah.
But like the
Love it.
the it's wild to see. I think we've over fetishized, pun intended, but
No pun intended.
but we over fetishize big collections, and I think that
Yeah.
now it's come to that point where Nike, other brands have fed into that of like, oh, we need to put out a new sneaker every
Hmm.
week. Some people every day, like some brands every day,
Yes.
and people are buying into it of like, okay, now I need a new pair, and we're not able to enjoy the pairs that we're able, like, bro, come on. And
Yes.
you know this for a fact because you just told your story of how it took you so many years until you started getting a bigger collection and you started buying more pairs. But we
Hmm.
got to the point where I think we've gotten too adept of to being like, okay, we need to start hoarding all these sneakers, hoarding.
Right.
Oh, if I miss out on this, oh man, I'm gonna be behind. Like, it all plays into each
Yep.
other, and it's not conducive to our
Yep.
wallets, to our lifestyles. Like, I live in New York,
Man.
rent's always gonna go up. Sneakers prices are also gonna
Yep.
go up. I'm not gonna have enough space.
Facts.
It's not fun after that. So I really, after I had
Yeah.
Russ on, well, in the beginning when I had the Air Vegan on, and he really instilled into me of
Yeah.
being like, you should appreciate the sneakers that you have because a lot of the stuff is built, with cheap stuff, and there's not really like,
Hmm.
there's not really like emphasis on like vegan stuff and stuff that's biodegradable and
Hmm.
helps the earth, and a lot of this stuff is just built just to just be built. It's not, there's no real function to it, which is what I got out of Russ's episode, and I take that
Yeah.
into what I'm going to take into next year with my buying, and it's a lot being a lot more conscious of the money we spent. And I think that even involves like,
Mm.
when people create content, it's also just like, why are we selling the idea of buying more sneakers?
Mm.
Like, why aren't we selling the
Mm.
idea of, I should cherish the one that I got right now, or the one that's even on the UPS right now. Like,
Yeah. Right. No, absolutely.
hmm
And and I'm gonna tell you, like that idea is at the center of the content that I make,
hmm
right? Because what I'm trying to do is to get us to take a minute to stop and to appreciate these shoes. Like that's really what I'm trying to do, man. Like because I'm right there with you. Like we're buying so much stuff, we don't even know what we're buying. We get it in, and then we that's these are dope, and then we toss them, and it's
yeah.
like, man, like what if we could take a second and just appreciate these shoes? And that's really I tell people, my brand of what I try to do is to give people the aspirin in the applesauce, right? So like the stories still matter, and these
hmm
brands are pumping out stories, and it's like unless it's like a super hyped up story like a Joe Fresh Goods or James Whitner or some
hmm
Amamanier thing where the hype is met with the stories tend to fly under the radar.
hmm
There's a shoe right now, and I'm about to put it out, man. It comes out this weekend. Unheard of boutique in
Oh, the
Cincinnati,
grandmas.
and the grandma's couch,
hmm
and shout to Phil. Phil reached out to me, and I love this, man. These opportunities, like I never take them for granted.
hmm
People are starting to reach out to me that are like, yo, like, would you mind telling this story? Like, would you mind telling it the way it needs to be told?
hmm
And it's like, that's a niche that I really didn't even find myself walking down, but just naturally, because even if I don't have the most subscribers, even if I don't have the most followers, like I've come to grips with the fact that I may never see a 100,000 subscriber plaque
Mhm.
on YouTube, you know. But at the same
Well, you have to
time,
buy
you
them after
know,
you get it, so it don't matter.
you know what? I just saw that the other day and I was like, yo, what? But anyway, yes, that's crazy to me. But yeah, like, so but when I realized it's like the people that really want the stories told,
Mhm.
trust me to tell their stories. And that means the world to me. So he
Yeah.
sent me, I have them here with me now. He sent me both colors of the shoe. And he's like, yo, like, do your thing. Joe, he's a homie, man. Like Joe, on the lowest of keys, Joe and I, we talk
Mhm.
offline. We'll text every so often, every now and again. I'm not gonna act like, oh yeah, me and Joe text every day. Nah, but like every so often he'll pop up with a voice memo. I'll send one back. And,
Mhm.
he sent me his New Balance about the Michael Jordan story,
Yeah.
and he wrote a note on it like, yo, you the voice of this shit. Like, tell the story. And so to your point, like that's what I'm really trying to do, man. I want to tell these stories. And even if it's not the most popular or the hottest thing in the world, to me, what you talk about quotes that you love, Tyler the Creator. One of my favorite quotes from Jay-Z is he was doing the New York Times interview and they were asking him how he feels about new artists that are super hot. And he's
Mhm.
like, there may be people that sell more records than me. There may be people that are flashes in the pan that may be white hot, but the white hot space is like this. And he said, I play forever.
Mhm.
Right. And when he said that, I was like,
That's
light bulb.
that's
You know
it.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he said, I play forever. So like, nah, like people are gonna come, people are gonna go. And that's how I see a lot of YouTube today. These reseller guys, these guys that are big on the hype and all the theatrics and
Mhm.
stuff like that, that's cool, but that's gonna pass by. But I want people to look at this story in the way that I presented this story for years to come,
Mhm.
for that to matter. So I truly in this space, I'm trying to find a way to play forever. So that's where I'm at right now.
I'm with you there, man. And so I
Yeah.
asked another question at the end of the podcast. We're towards the end of the podcast, and you're talking about
Mhm.
stories. This whole podcast is about stories. So I want you to think about your story that you told in the beginning of this podcast, where you're about to get the Tommy Hilfiger flies. Um,
Yeah.
Now you're you as a kid about to open that box,
Right.
right? And you
Mhm.
take a time machine, you go back, you're behind yourself, your younger self, as you right now. What would you tell your younger self as they open that box?
Man. Whew. I would tell him, I would tell him to make sure that you enjoy this moment and not just the moment when it comes to these shoes, but make sure that you enjoy this time in your life because it's going to get rocky.
Hmm.
It's going to get real rocky. And at that time in my life, um, I tell people all the time, man, like I'm a nostalgia junkie, right? And so, I tell people that was those years. I tell people between like 93 and like 2000 were like the best years of my life
Hmm.
because they were so carefree. And, I don't really think that I appreciated I mean, I was a kid, so I mean, how much can you really appreciate it at that point?
Yeah.
But just, I'm telling myself, if I'm my older self behind my shoulder, like, man, like, soak this in, man. Have as much fun in this moment as you possibly can. Stop thinking. Don't think about tomorrow. Think about today. Because I always had a bad problem with thinking about what's next, what's next, what's
Hmm.
next. And a lot of times you miss right now thinking about tomorrow. And so I would definitely tell myself, like, those are fly. You're gonna love this moment. You're gonna look amazing. You about to kill them at school. Just make sure that you freeze these moments, man, and you really appreciate them. Appreciate this time in your life because it's a blessing and it's gonna be the best, one of the best times that you'll ever have. So yeah,
Man, that was beautifully
that's
said,
man.
man.
You got me with that one. You got me with that one, man. Got
It's
me
all
thinking
good.
back now, man.
It's all good.
That's crazy.
Liz, you didn't plug yourself in the
Yeah.
beginning, so plug yourself. Like, where do people find you? So make sure to
For
follow you.
sure. So if you want to keep up with me currently, it's at Sneaker Fetish. That is sneaker with a PH,
Mhm.
ETISH. Everywhere, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. Twitter is my main platform. I'm on there way more than I should be, but
A lot.
yeah, Twitter's
Very.
my main platform. But yeah, everywhere. I'm on Twitter way too much. But yeah, that's where I'm at, man. And if you ever want to laugh, you can go on YouTube and look up Lyrical Fetish, and you can laugh to my old music.
I'm
And
definitely
so
gonna look
I
that up.
never gave nobody. Look, I never. Just so you know, like, cause it's you, bro. Like, I never gave nobody that YouTube before where my
Uh-huh.
old music is. But I'm gonna give it to you.
Let's
So
get the all my listeners. If you no matter what time of point or point in time that you listen to this, right? It could
yo,
be 7 years from now. Let's get let's get lyrical fetish to 100K. So
yo,
it has to be the point
that's
that he gets.
crazy.
If he get if my podcast blows up and I get 100K and there's 100,000 people listening
Yeah,
to this episode, they got to get lyrical fetish to 100K. I want Kari to
yo,
get
that's
the plaque
crazy.
to specifically that YouTube. He can't get it to his current one, but he can get it to
Crazy.
that one.
Not to my current one. That's crazy. Yo, ah, if that ever happened, that'd be insane. That'd be like going
yo,
platinum. That's
yo,
crazy.
Kari, thank you so much for jumping on, man. It's a hell of a time. And for everybody out there, you know what we say
Man.
each week: wear your kicks. Peace.